This is the look I'm going to be showing you guys how to do. It's made to look good in real life. I know the lighting isn't great and I know you can't see stuff very well, but I made it so that you guys can see the way I do my techniques and how I explain each step. So hopefully it's helpful and I promise you will look gorgeous in real life if you follow along. Let's get my hair back because it always gets in my way. I don't know if people do their makeup with their hair down because I'm personally not that skilled. Okay, Embryolisse. This is like the cream celebrities use before red carpet, so you know it's good. When I started using it accidentally for like a trip that I had, I only bought this, which I use as a primer, and so I had to use it as a moisturizer, and I realized how good of a moisturizer it actually was when it cleared my skin up. I like to add it on my neck as well, and then really work it into the dehydrated parts. I like to avoid putting a heavy cream on the eyelids because they're usually oily. Mine definitely are. So I use like a gel or water based moisturizer on my eyelids, and then I also add that after the moisturizer under my eyes because I need a lot of hydration under just hit the window. Under eyes are typically dry, so you want to make sure you get that. Next, I'm using Aquaphor for my lips. This is the healing ointment, not the lip balm. Trust me when I say it's way more worth it. Look at the size of this, and it doesn't taste or smell bad, and it's a lot thicker, so I recommend this over the chapstick, and it's the best chapstick, this one that I've ever used ever. I've tried so many because I have the driest lips on earth. Okay, now I'm using eye primer. You want to use eye primer especially if you have oily eyelids. Do not use concealer on your eyelids ever unless they're dry, which is like super rare. And I like the Urban Decay one. This is in Eden because it also has pigment to it, so it creates like an even base without you having to apply any concealer at all. Look at that. If you have trouble with creasing on your eyelids and you don't use an eye primer, that is 100% why. Also, this brush is from Real Techniques and it's 210. It's actually a concealer blending brush. Sometimes I like to take what's left on my fingers or my brush and just gently put it in the areas that crease a lot, because this is gonna like make the makeup grip better, because eye primers are really gripping, but you don't want to have enough that you can see it. It has to be like a really tiny amount. I bought this NARS foundation. I'm actually trying it for the first time. It's the light reflecting one. Okay, I'm using the big brush from Say Beauty. Picking some of that up. Let's just see. I bought this to match my body, by the way. I know my face is always pale. This looks so nice. It actually definitely looks better on camera, I'm not gonna lie, than in person, which I haven't heard anyone say. I can definitely see more texture in person than on camera, but definitely not in a concerning way at all. Like, it's very minimal. Definitely avoid your under eyes when putting foundation on, because you're gonna put concealer on there. You don't want to put extra product if you don't need to, because that's just gonna cause more creasing. Okay, I like to take like the tiniest bit. There's really nothing left on my palette, and that's when I do my forehead, because my forehead and most people's forehead usually has a lot of texture on it, and when you cake on product, it just amplifies that completely. I definitely prefer doing my brows after, because I like to run my foundation over them. I'm again not using a lot, so that's why it's not like picking up any product, but I find it's really important to get this whole area the same color as the rest of your face, otherwise it looks really off. Oh, the foundation, by the way, was the shade Valencia. This concealer is light beige. It's the hydrating camo concealer. I'm really focusing it in the darker area, and I'm not using a lot of product because I don't want to like make the area that's already light any lighter, because then it's going to ruin the whole effect of like concealing the dark circles. And I'm also going to start to contour the sides of my nose. And what this does is eliminate the shadows that I already have, which make my nose appear wider. So by lightening that area, I'm reducing the contrast of where the shadows sit. And that's going to make it a lot easier for me to make my nose appear slimmer when I do go in with contour. Because I like my chin to look more prominent and my face to look a little bit longer, I definitely like to put some concealer at the bottom of my chin. Okay, it's sat there for a while now, and what I like to do is start with my beauty blender over here, and then I start moving outwards without like really rotating the sponge much. And I love this sponge from Real Techniques. It's one of the fuzzy ones because I swear it doesn't absorb any product. It's actually meant to be a powder sponge, but I don't like it for powder as much as I like it for cream. So now I'm going to rotate it to the other side so I don't transfer concealer where I don't want it to be. So this is like the cleaner side, and I do the same thing. Now I'm going to blend out the chin area. Then with whatever's left on my sponge, I'm just placing it here. Take some of my Say Sun Melt bronzer. So I'm just gonna take a little bit with this e.l.f. bronzer, maybe one of these two. It's actually a contour kit, but these are definitely not contours or bronzers. They're like bronzers. It's good for like high definition makeup, but it's definitely not natural makeup. But it is a lot more cool toned than it looks in the palette, so I don't know. It's like a weird in between. Okay, this is the e.l.f. Ultimate Blending Brush, and I'm just gonna pick up a tiny bit, and let's see, definitely a natural bronzer shade. I'm just placing it above where my contour would end, which I'm gonna show you how I do in a bit, like literally above my cheekbone line basically. Really make sure to get into the hairline. Because I wax my hairline, if you can't tell, sometimes it's less tan than like the bits that I don't wax because it's sometimes covered by hair, so I really need to make sure to get that area. And then with like the tiny bit that's left, I like to just go on the perimeter of my jaw to warm it up and not make it look like out of place. I'm taking some of my Fenty matchstick and pick some of that product up on here, and I kind of like to do it in a line so I know where the product is, and then I put it right under, not on, under where I want my cheekbone to be so I can enhance the shadow and blend slightly upwards, but then I like to have most of the product around here. So the blending upwards was just to make it look diffused when I first apply it, but you do want your product to be here if you want like sculpted cheekbones. You see how that creates like a shadow there? That's how you want your contour to be placed if that's your goal. So I'm drawing this line right here, then blending it inwards. And then if you want to create a slimmer jaw from like the front, you can place a little bit right here. That's going to create a shadow and make it seem as if your jaw is going like this rather than like wide like this. It's going to make it look pushed in. So I always like to add some there for my specific face shape. Go under my jawline to enhance the shadow, and sometimes you can make a double chin and go like that so you know where the bone is and you can get exactly that area, and then blend it downwards to make it look natural. You definitely want to make sure that you're using a shade that matches your shadows and not like a warmed shade, which a lot of people make the mistake of when they're picking a contour. So it's gonna need to be gray, but it's gonna need to have a little bit of beige to it. So a lot of people use grays and they look like crazy, but that's like what they use for theater makeup. You need something that's gonna be in between the color gray and the color of your skin. So that's how you choose your contour. That's how it's gonna look most natural. It needs to match your shadows. Now for the sides of my forehead, I like to make my forehead look taller and less wide, and I do it right over here. I don't like to go into my temples because they're already sunken in, so just right here. And I do not go up here because I don't want to shorten my forehead. Okay, for nose contour, I like to use a flat concealer brush, and I always start in the area that I can have some more concentrated product on, like under my nose right there, and then a little bit over the nose, just here. And I'm blending towards the tip of my nose, so it kind of creates like an illusion of it going towards like a point. And then I'm going for my natural shadow, like, which is right here. I'm gonna not go in from there, but a little bit forward, and draw the tip of my nose where I want it to sit. And I used a bit of a darker shade just so you guys can see, but you want to use a more natural shade for sure. And then you want to blend it outwards just so that it looks more diffused, but you're not trying to move the product, you're just trying to blend it. And then from here, blend upwards if you want a swooped looking nose from the front, My nose is a lot more souped from this side than it looks like it is from the front, so I like to make it look as if it actually is. Just go up right here. This is very specific to my nose shape, by the way. Right this way, and kind of draw a line where you want your nose to be. And I like to do it all the way up to my brows, just because it creates a more taller nose so that it looks less wide in comparison. If it's taller, it's just naturally gonna look narrower. Then I'm gonna go blend this inwards, so again it looks like it's going towards a point. Okay, now I'm using this blush from M Cosmetics. It kind of melted into the cap, which is really annoying, but this is Venetian Rose. Okay, I'm using this stippling brush from e.l.f. to pick up my blush, and I like to place it exactly where I want plumpness. So I want my cheekbones to be most plump, so I'm not putting it here. That's gonna add more fleshiness to this area, which I like to do when I'm going for a cute look. But if I'm going for like a more glam look, I always put it higher up. And then I like to go higher into my temples and brow bone as well. And then I blend this upwards right here. This definitely lifts my face. Like this side definitely looks more lifted than this side. What we're gonna do is add a little bit on the nose, but we're not going for a sunburnt look. This is just to make it look more natural, because if it's just here, it kind of looks a little bit strange. And tiny bit right here and here. And then I blend some into my crease as well, just to make it look more cohesive. This is how the blush placement kind of looks, a little more close up. Okay, this is a Morphe highlighting brush, which I love because it like diffuses the product so nicely. It looks so airbrushed. And this is like right underneath where I placed my blush and on top of where I placed my contour, just like the cream bronzer. And this is the Physicians Formula bronzer, just like dupe for Hoola, but I actually like this one better. I just do a little bit right here to warm up my forehead. It's just exactly where I placed my cream bronzer. And you want to try and do your best to tap rather than swipe so it doesn't remove the creams underneath. And now I'm going in with a translucent powder. I literally barely ever dip my puff back in the powder because there's always enough product on there. Like, you can't even see the product, I know, but to me it's enough. It's just enough so that it has contact with my makeup and it just does this job setting it. But when I want to bake my nose is when I dip again. I never dip when I'm doing my concealer setting. So a powder puff is a lot nicer than a sponge or a brush in my opinion. It's specifically made for powder, and like I feel like the other products don't pick up powder as well. This I'm just placing where I placed my concealer earlier to just brighten it even more and kind of hide those shadows even more, as you can see, and set my eyelids so that there's a nice space for my eyeshadows to sit. And then you can set the rest of your face with a puff as well. I just prefer not to. I like the look of no powdered skin because of the texture it kind of avoids, but this is very dependent on your skin type, the whole routine. I have a very normal skin type, so I'm definitely gonna make videos on different skin types because the routine would be very different, but this is more like technique focused. Okay, let's get into eyeshadows. You can use any like nude beige eyeshadow palette for this. I'm using the Tarte in Bloom palette, and just take like this will be very dependent on skin tone, but just take like a brown, almost kind of grayish toned one. And I'd never like to go into my crease because I like to elongate my eyes rather than round them out because they're already pretty round. So I just take a big fluffy brush and focus that right there on the outer third of my eye and wing it out a little bit. And this is just adding some contour and definition to my eye and shaping it the way I want it to be shaped. Okay, then I like to take a more dense brush and a tiny bit of a darker color, and I'm gonna just do basically the same thing but in a more focused area that's closer to the lash line, and even more on the outside. And I'm just gonna wing it out slightly. I'm not applying any product on the peak of my eye, like where it's the tallest. I'm just blending it towards her so it doesn't look crazy. And then just wing it out really gently, because as soon as you press hard, and if you have a crease like I do right here, it's gonna make the product skip and apply really patchily. For my specific eye shape, I have a slight hood, but it's not very hooded to the point where I can't avoid it. So I like to wing it out just under where my hood is, because I have just enough space to do that. If I were to go over the hood, it would make it a lot more difficult, and I would have to kind of redo the same thing. If you can see, there's kind of a patch of like no eyeshadow where my hood is. So if you really do that a lot, you're gonna have to kind of close your eyes and go over it quite a few times. So I just like to avoid that little step. But it's definitely possible to do this on hooded eyes. You can just close your eyes and just blend it. Okay, now with a more dark color, I just like to go again in a more specific, precise area with a more precise brush, always working towards the outside and towards the lash line as you go to darker colors and smaller brushes. You just want to make it go like from here all the way to out here. I don't know if that makes sense. And then slowly, really gently wing it out, and be very careful where the hood is. Okay, now that it's looking a lot more winged out, kind of, I like to take like almost a black shade. You can go as dark as you want. I like to go pretty dark if it's like a more glam look. And since I tried my best to make this kind of into a wing, I can easily just go under all that shadow with this like black almost eyeshadow, so it's like kind of creating a line underneath what I just did, and really gently wing it out using this tiny wing liner brush, which is literally from Forever 21, and then diffuse it inwards, kind of making the line follow, like the line of the brush follow the line of the eyeshadow you just made, like sitting it right where you made the eyeshadow line, and then pushing it inwards and upwards a little bit, and it creates this nice like diffused look, if you know what I mean. Okay, now I'm just brushing out my lashes so they kind of fan out a lot nicer after I curl them, instead of like kind of stick together sometimes. Okay, let's get close for this part. Now I like to scoop all the lashes, like going in this way, because a lot of these lashes get left out. So I scoop the lashes, angle my eye so that like the line of the metal on my eyelash color matches up with my lash line, and then start curling a little bit. And then I move my way upward. This looks really scary and painful. I promise it does not hurt. If it hurts, get a new lash curler. You're using a bad one. And then I like to angle it towards this way so it lifts these lashes even more. I promise it does not hurt. I always get people saying you're gonna rip your eyelashes out, but I promise you won't. And then work your way upwards towards the length of your lashes, and just look at the difference. Okay, I literally had to move my camera up. Now you can see that I'm behind my bed, but we're gonna really get into this. So wipe off basically all the product off your wand, so no clumpiness within the wand, otherwise it's gonna be clumpiness in your lashes, especially if it's a new product. Always focus on the tip of the wand, because that's what's gonna give you a lot of those dry clumps. And then once that's done, you're gonna look downwards into a mirror and lift the corner of your lashes. We're gonna do winged out lashes. They're gonna look like falsies. Trust me, this is so good. And you lift right here, and you focus this at the very root of the lashes, and you wiggle it there, and then pull it out. And you really focus on the root. We're not focusing on the length yet. That's gonna cause clumpiness, because we want a lot more product at the root. Wiggle at the root and flick it outwards a couple of times, and then we have a lot of product deposited onto the root already. Look at that. You want to start wiggling throughout the whole thing. Now we're blending the root bit towards the length of the lashes. And then once that's like a lot, you can kind of flick in the direction you want, and this is gonna make them look more fluffy and less clumpy. Now, if you had a lot of product on this, it would make them look more clumpy. That's the difference. So really just flick, and I like to move them outwards a little bit so they look more cat eye. That's what we're gonna do. And it kind of just moves them so that it like goes with the shape of your ring. Okay, now I'm gonna do brows. I like to start from the top with a pencil, a really precise one, and even them out as much as I can. My brows are super duper uneven. I don't know if you can see, but I can see how uneven they are all the time. Okay, that kind of gives me a basic shape to work with. I'm not really happy with it though. But then I kind of just even out the bottom and fix up the tails, which I never am happy with. Now I'm gonna use a brow pen. This one's from NYX. This just helps me draw in more realistic looking brow hairs so that it doesn't look like I just used some powder. Okay, moving on to lips. I'm using this Collection Cosmetic lip liner. All the information of it has rubbed off, but it's a really nice brown, and I'm gonna line my lips with it. So I have double line lips, which means that they have like 2 lines, and a lot of people usually line the outer line of their lips, and it looks kind of funny, and people think lipstick doesn't look good on them because of that, but it's actually because they're using the wrong lip line. So on the inside, the middle part, you want to use your outer lip line as a guide, and then for the outsides you want to use your inner lip line for a guide, and then connect the two where they meet, and that way you have a really nice naturally pouty lip. Now what I like to do is use some concealer in the center of my lips to make it look like they're more plump. And then I love always just using a gloss to finish it. It just removes all the fine lines as well. Looks so much nicer and juicy. Here it is in a lot better lighting. I think you can see the colors a lot better now, and the skin texture and everything, although it's not the same as real life, of course. I'm sorry the video wasn't very good quality. I don't have any equipment as yet, but I will soon when I focus a bit more on YouTube rather than TikTok. But yeah, I hope you can kind of see what I did based on how I explained it and how my techniques were, rather than like how the product appeared on my skin. But I hope it helped.